Soulful shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, just some soulful shit for everyone, you know what I'm saying? Like, I made this be myself, so hear me. Woo! I mean, like, we can pull that clown shit away. There's some real shit for you. I'm spazzing right now, so listen, let's go. Yeah. It's in their bones, the thugs in harmony for the love of the money. Then fall victim for the cookie, then turn pussy, it's lonely. You said you hold it down when life get rough, we're here now, so show me. We move them losses to them wins. Heavy pounds, we make it ends meet. Converse with only few who make me feel like I be 10 feet.
Big up people. What's going on, man? It's G. We are back in the building. I was going to do this as a live, but I thought, you know what? It's not really that deep. It's not really that deep. Of course, we're here for the match preview, Liverpool versus Bologna in the Champions League, match day 2. Now, of course, Liverpool getting off to a very good start in the Champions League, of course, facing off against AC Milan, you know, in the Champions League, getting a 3-1 victory away at the San Siro, which, of course, is always a good thing. Obviously, now we're on to our second game. Obviously, we know with this whole kind of new age kind of, you know, Champions League format that they've kind of got going on. So, of course, this is kind of the way forward. This is the way forward. And Bologna, of course, getting off to a draw, getting a point in their first game against Shakhtar Donetsk. So, yeah, both teams undefeated, if you want to say that, so far in the Champions League. Liverpool hoping to get 2 out of 2, and Bologna looking to get their first victory in the Champions League. Now, let's kind of get straight to it. As always, guys, please make sure you are smashing the like, sharing, and subscribing. Now, obviously, I'm recording this, you know, in the evening, late Tuesday evening, hence why it says tomorrow on there, but of course you guys are watching it as of Wednesday. But you can kind of see here the lineup from Bologna. In regards to Bologna, I was taking a look, you know, at like how have they been, you know, this season. Now, obviously, we know if you guys watched my video where I did like the kind of Champions League expectations, so I took a look at, you know, all the teams, you know, that Liverpool are going to have to face, you know, their threats, you know, what they've been doing, you know, how they've done, etc., etc. Like, obviously, since last season, Bologna for me this season anyway, obviously they're not doing too great, if I'm being totally honest, of course, in the league. Currently sitting now, down in 13th position. So, you know, it's kind of a stark contrast to what we saw last season under Thiago Motta, you know, where they were thriving, you know, the football that they were playing and all of these kind of things. You know, they were kind of one of the teams that you kind of looked at and were like, yo, like this is a really, really good team. You know, and if Thiago Motta had stayed and if they were able to, you know, potentially keep a few of the players, then, you know, there could have been a conversation there, you know, in regards to what they could or couldn't have potentially have done, right? But listen, ultimately, they're here, you know what I mean, in this kind of position. And yeah, man, they haven't really been doing too well, if I'm being honest, this season. Football, it's obviously changed with the new manager coming in. The style, and it's deep. This kind of thing, it happens all the time, man. You know, with like other teams where, you know, manager gets poached or players get poached. You know, they lost, you know, a couple of star players, you know, in their team, and yes, you can replace them, you know, so to speak, but you know, it's just never ever going to be the same. And I was a little bit not annoyed, but I was a little bit like, it's a bit deep on them. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not nice, you know, for a team like Bologna, you know, to, you know, first time, you know, heading, I think it's their first time anyway, heading into the Champions League, you know, how are they going to be able to react? How are they actually going to be, you know, as a football team, especially under Thiago Motta? Like, there was all this kind of big talk. And then, as I say, you know, with Thiago Motta leaving, you know, it just kind of ended in this kind of way, if I'm being totally honest with you. So, listen, man, it is what it is. I'm just having a look now. I mean, to be fair, they did win the Intertoto Cup in 1998. We all remember that, the Intertoto Cup. So they got some type of European heritage, so to speak. But yeah, like I said, man, I think for Liverpool, and obviously I'll get into, you know, the my lineup and stuff like that for the game. But I think for Liverpool, especially as this game is going to be, you know, played at home, you know, coming off the back of their victory at the weekend to Wolves. I know it was not a really good performance, so they would want to get back to, you know, just at least playing well heading into the game against Crystal Palace, you know, at the weekend. I think I'm hoping surely this should just be a foregone conclusion, for Liverpool. And as you guys can obviously see here, in terms of the last 5 games, for both teams, you can see, Liverpool only lost that one game against Nottingham Forest at the beginning, of this month. And then, of course, Bologna, you can see, haven't lost, to be fair, haven't lost any games in the last 5, but they've only got that 2-1 victory. So, yeah, both teams coming in Liverpool coming in good form, of course, if you're just looking at it games-wise, 4 out of the last 5 victories. Bologna, you look at it and think they're not losing. I think that's probably the only thing I can realistically say. Haven't lost in the last 5 matches that they've obviously played in. So, yeah, it's like it's one of those, if I'm being totally honest with you. But again, like I said, for me, it should kind of just be, a foregone conclusion. Now, obviously, as I said, I was taking a look at their last game specifically. I watched the highlights of that match against Atalanta. Yeah, I didn't feel they were okay. Do you know what I mean? Like both teams were a bit like, yeah, okay. That game, in my opinion, reminded me of like me watching Brighton versus Bournemouth kind of thing. That them kind of games where you're just maybe not even Brighton versus Bournemouth. Yeah, no, I'll keep to that. Or Crystal Palace versus Palace versus like a Wolves or something. Like, I don't know, like wasn't too much quality on show. The two teams were kind of meaty in my opinion, in the game. Of course, obviously they got their 1-1 draw. They were down to 10 men in the game as well. So yeah, but I was more looking at just their shape and how they do like to actually play. And they do play with that kind of 4-3-3. And I think that's where, of course, Liverpool's is a 4-3-3, but 4-2-3-1 in certain passages of play and stuff like that. So again, it'll be interesting to see, how we kind of do that for this game. But you can see here, this is their kind of shape that they have got, and you can see with their number 8 in there. I think that's Freuler, who's going to obviously drop in. I believe it's Freuler. Anyway, I'll double check there. Yeah, Freuler. He'll obviously be dropping into those kind of centre backs area, and he kind of acts as at times anyway, which is, and you guys will, well, some of you might remember Freuler from the Euros with Switzerland playing alongside Granit Xhaka, but Freuler will be the one who at times will just sit a little bit deeper and allow the rest of the midfield to kind of take their own shape, in the team, and then passages of play is how they'll try and maneuver the ball forward. There will be a team that I think that once we score one, I think we'll be able to score quite a few after that. From how I've seen the way that they play and all the highlights that I've watched, that's kind of how I see them, is that if we can score one, the way that Liverpool are, we can, potentially get another, straight afterwards. And then I think that's when the floodgates will then start to open. But I do think maybe it might be a bit tricky at first. And as I've said, numerous of times, we already know with the way that Liverpool start games at times, it can be a little bit testy, Now, obviously, taking a look, there was 2 players that I like the look of for Bologna. 2 players that I think could, if they're going to get anything from the game, it's going to be from these 2 players if they are obviously going to be available. One of them is Castro. They're number 9, scored 3 goals in the Serie A for Bologna at this current moment in time. He's a very lively individual, very, very lively. He is kind of a lone striker kind of thing, as you can see with his heat map there. He kind of will drop into into like that kind of attacking midfield area. He will like to then float left to right, so to speak. But you can see he does like to get himself into the box, and of course, being their main man up front, he will try and pose a little bit of danger. And he's someone who, don't let him shoot. That's one thing I've kind of gauged about him, is do not let this guy shoot. Because if you let this guy shoot, yeah, it might be a little bit problematic. Got a good shot on him. He can finish, with that right foot, and he can shoot from outside the box, inside the box. I wouldn't say he's a poacher, but he can be. Now I was going to say Diogo Jota-esque, but not really like that. He can just be a threat in the box, and I don't mean that. Obviously, if you got Virgil and say Canate, for example, back there, they'll be able to deal with those kind of things. It's just more about, don't let him have space inside the box, because he seems like one of those strikers who will find the back of the net if you give him too much space in the box, and he doesn't need a crazy backlift as an example in order for him to kind of get that shot off. So definitely one player I think who should be key for them. But if we cut that supply service, and this is where it gets to the next guy I was going to look at, which is Freuler. If we can cut that supply service to him, in terms of how Freuler, in that middle of the park for Bologna, and especially for Switzerland as well. He can be a very big nuisance. You know, he's someone who's decent at breaking up play. He is someone as well, does like to get himself a tackle. You know, he will put himself about, but he can also play a little bit of football. You can see here, accurate passes per game. You know, he's got 93% in his own half, you know, 99%, opposition half, 88%. You know, he like I said, he can keep the ball pretty well. He can keep the team ticking. And I think they're going to obviously being away for them and at home for us, they're going to need something like that, you know, within the game. So that's where I feel, you know, for a team like Bologna, these are the kind of areas that I'm kind of looking at, and I'm thinking, okay, this is what they're going to have to do in order for them to, you know, potentially get a result. Because as we show here, you know, if he's got the ball here, I don't want him to be able to, you know, pop the ball about and we're trying to, you know, stop him there. And, you know, Fabian here is going to have the space to, you know, potentially run on. And then, you know, it leaves Castro, who I think will start to do this, where he might drop in. Virgil caught in two minds. Now you got Orsolini potentially, you know, running in on goal. I don't really need any of that. And this is where I just think, just at times, I think that, you know, we're going to have to be, you know, relatively switched on. Now, so obviously you can see here, this is the lineup that I've kind of gone with. So I've gone with Alisson in goal. Left back, I've gone with Tsimikas. Virgil van Dijk, Joe Gomez at the back. Now I've gone with Gomez because I wanted to give Konate another rest. I think this is a game that we can give him a rest. Yeah, just really for that kind of reason, to be honest. I didn't want to switch out too much because I still needed the team to be relatively strong just to keep that level of cohesion as well at times. But yeah, I think Gomez can kind of plot in there. I mean, you can put in Kwanzaa if people feel Kwanzaa is the one that they want in there, then fair enough. I've got no problem. And of course, I've gone with Trent instead of Bradley. Again, cohesion. I think Trent will be calm to play the game unless he's got a knock or an injury. And then I look at it just in terms of if Trent, after about 55, 60 minutes, you think the game's already done and dusted, you can bring on Bradley for the last half an hour, give Trent that rest heading into the game, you know, against Crystal Palace. DM, I've gone with Gravenberch. I think the form that he's kind of been in, you know, playing well. I can't see, you know, if he's feeling, you know, up to it, just play him again. McAllister, of course, and I've dropped Szoboszlai, even though I've been giving him a lot of praise, and I have tried, but you guys ain't trying to let that live. But I've put in Jones just for this game. And then Gakpo on the left. I think, yep, listen, he did well in his first game against AC Milan. So I said, you know what, why not? Did decent as well against West Ham as well. So listen, if you can give players a rest and you've got other players who are, you know, still performing, why not do that? So I've gone with Gakpo. Nunez up top because of the news of Diogo Jota, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then Mohamed Salah, again, because of the news of Federico Chiesa. But yeah, like I said, I think for Liverpool, I think it's just more about stopping this supply line. I think that's, for me, going to be quite key, if I'm being totally honest, is just stopping him being able to dictate play, so to speak, because I think this is obviously just their predicted lineup, by the way. I don't know if they're exactly going to go, you know, with this, but if I'm just looking at the way that they do play, he will become quite pivotal, both in possession and out of possession. That's where I think, you know, a player like him, you know, can be a little bit troublesome, you know, because if they're going to, you know, potentially set up just a bit lower here, for example, let's say I drop all of these guys back. So he got Ndoye. He's very quick, by the way. So Trent will probably potentially need to be on his toes because Ndoye could do that quite a lot, I think. And this is where I say, you know, if they do have the ball and he's playing that ball into spaces like this or into gaps like that, where Liverpool don't really like to press the man, so to speak. And we saw against Wolves not pressing the man versus man-to-man press. We saw the kind of difference, right? But if you let players like Ndoye get into those kind of spaces, could be problematic. And as I said, I don't want someone like Castro, you know, getting that space, you know, in and around the edge of the box because he does like to take shots. I'm not saying he's going to score all of them, but you don't want to, you know, preempt anything, you know, and that's just the way that I kind of see it, you know, when it does come to Bologna. Now, looking at the news, as I said before, the manager obviously spoke about Diogo Jota. He obviously spoke about Federico Chiesa. So this is why, you know, Nunez looks like he probably will get a start. He was ill in the last game. So I say, hey, why not? You know, this might be a game for him to just be able to come in, potentially build some confidence heading into, you know, the weekend's set of games. I put this up here because I thought this was quite interesting, what he was talking about he's talking about Pep Guardiola, but just in general about being a manager and stuff like that. I see a successful manager as a manager that has a playing style you can see day in, day out. And I believe that too. I believe that too. I kind of agree with that in terms of how I look at successful managers, because when you can see that their team is in their eyes, you're always looking at it and think, okay, whether they do good or bad, it will then depend on other factors, so to speak. But can we see what you're trying to do? Hence why managers like, Eric Ten Hag will always be criticized and vilified, because even if the most positive Manchester United fan wants to come up here and say, yeah, but you can see now we're improving. I'm like, yeah, we're in year 3. If the sheer fact that we're saying in year 3 you are improving, and you've got some type of excuses for the other 2 seasons where it didn't look like anything was really going on, this is where it becomes problematic. Of course, as I mentioned, Jota and Chiesa are not in training, so that's why I've gone, with that lineup. I think maybe Jota might be available for the bench, but I'm not 100% sure in regards to that. And this is just Arne Slot saying he cannot accept mediocrity. I think talking more about, the game against Wolves, because again, like I said, it just was, in my opinion, it was kind of a poor performance, from the Reds, and we definitely need to, we need to just fix it up. You know what I mean? We don't want to. No, you don't want that to be a trend. You really don't want those kind of things to, to be a trend. But we'll wait and see. In regards to scoreline, I said it on Enz's show during his preview, so I'll go with 3-1. I've gone with all of the front 3 that I picked. So Gakpo, Nunez, and Salah all to get themselves goals. And I think Salah will get 2 assists in the game. I think Salah will get 2 assists for them. Maybe Ndoye. I think Ndoye might, pop up with a goal. Let me know your thoughts, of course, in the comment section, people. I will be back on the Thursday morning, usual time, probably 11 a.m., where we'll go through the match reaction. So make sure you guys stay locked in, stay tuned, and I'll catch you guys on the other side. Peace.